We are live on VSiN and DraftKings Network alongside former NFL executive Michael Lombardi. I'm Stormy Bonantoni. Lots to get to this hour. Coming up in about 15 minutes, Tate Frazier of the One Shining podcast, The Ringer, is going to join us, get into all things college hoops, the first round games he's already looking at, his reaction to how the committee did, and plenty of NFL talk as well, reacting to the first week of free agency in the books and things kind of settling in here, Michael. But yesterday, coming off of Selection Sunday, what was your first reaction to the committee's choices and any one or two things that stood out above the rest for you?
Well, I think you touched on it. I think the bracket that they put UConn in, Iowa State, Auburn, Illinois, that's a hard bracket. I think the first thing you always want to look at is what's the path to get there? Who do you have to beat to get there? Because if it goes really well, you can end up being an Elite Eight team that kind of didn't have to beat anybody to get there, right? And so I thought the South, with Houston's injuries, I thought that kind of was wide open. Could I see Nebraska upsetting Houston if they get past Longwood? Sure. Could I see A&M if they beat Nebraska? Yes. So it's interesting. You can get to the Sweet 16 where you go. And I was surprised at North Carolina when you went through the KenPom. When you went through the KenPom rankings, North Carolina was 9th in his power rankings overall. And he obviously puts a bunch of different numbers and he spins it analytically. But for them to be a 9th in his ranking and to have a number 1 seed seemed a little odd to me. So I was just kind of counterbalancing where he had them in terms of where they ended up going. Kentucky he has as the 19th team in the country for a lot of reasons. And they're a 3 seed. He's got Michigan State as an 18th team in the country, and they're a 9th seed. So his rankings and the committee are way different.
Yeah, a few head scratchers like that, especially North Carolina, as you referenced, when everybody thought it was a done deal. They're a double-digit favorite against NC State in the final. The Wolfpack's playing 5 games in 5 days. They end up getting that win and steal a bid to win the ACC tournament. And you mentioned Houston there also. It was interesting looking at their betting splits over here at DraftKings. So they're 5-1. They're the second shortest shot to win the NCAA tournament this year, behind only the defending champion UConn Huskies at 4-1. They're only getting 6% of bets right now overall, but 22% of the handle. So there is a lot of money, more money than any other team coming in on Houston, but the percentage of bets really, really low there. Kentucky at 25-1. Getting the second most handle at 15% and also the most bets at 15%.
Yeah, I mean, it is fascinating. I'll tell you another team that stuck out to me, Stormy, was New Mexico, right? They go through and they win your Big West Conference. I mean, they lost 4 of the last, they're 18-3 back in the end of January. They win, and then they go on a losing streak. They lose 6 of the next 10 games, right? And the last game of the year, they lose to Utah State on the road, and you think, well, this is over. And then they come back and they just play. They beat Colorado State. They beat San Diego State. San Diego State's well-ranked, and they get themselves in the tournament. And when you look at where KenPom has them as like the 23rd best team in the country, like something happened at the end of January. The month of February wasn't a good month for New Mexico, but you can't overlook what they accomplished. And I think the rankings here is interesting. I mean, here they are. They're favored against Clemson.
Yeah, they're the 11 seed in that 11-6, laying 1.5 right now in that game against the Tigers. And that is a team that I'm probably going to pick to advance in my bracket. It's interesting for a team like that, too. And maybe this is a question for Tate Frazier when he joins us. I always have question marks about these teams of whether or not I want to buy in after they've won a tournament or not. Like, I know talking to Elliot a little bit earlier, something in him was actually a little bit relieved that Purdue didn't win the tournament so that they didn't have to go on this crazy run of winning however many games to get to a Final Four and get to a national championship. So I am curious about that. Another kind of head scratcher for me when you talk about the comps to KenPom was Auburn, the SEC champions, being a 4 seed. They won 27 games this year, 26 of those 27 wins by double digits. KenPom has them as his number 4 team in the rankings, yet they're a 4 seed. That one seemed a little bit off. But to go back to Purdue quickly, do you think that they're a vulnerable 1 seed? Or do you think they could be in contention to pull a Virginia like they did, going from losing in that 16-1 in 2018 to then winning it all in 2019? Could Matt Painter's squad be like that after getting upset by Fairleigh Dickinson last year in the opening round?
Well, I think they certainly have the talent to do it. It would be obvious that, to count them out that quickly would be unfair. And they have the great numbers to do it, and they have the team, and they won the Big Ten regular season in a battle-tested area. So you got to give them credit. I mean, so much is made of Painter's inability to win the big game. Well, maybe that's going to change now, and I think ultimately the same thing. Tony Bennett had to sit on that horrible loss that he had for a whole year and came back to win the whole damn thing. So I think sometimes when the pressure's off, you just got to get through the first game, right? And then you can relax a little bit. Not relax in the sense let your guard down, but relax in terms of we got to go somewhere where we weren't last year.
Some of the tougher teams in that side of the bracket, Tennessee, Gonzaga, Kansas, although we know the issues that they have had recently. When we had Thomas Gable, director of the Race and Sportsbook at the Borgata, join us earlier, we asked him about some of the biggest line moves that he's seen or most bets that have come in on some of these first-round games. He said the most handle by far that he has seen so far, Morehead State against Illinois. Went from getting 13.5 points to 11.5 points in that 3 versus 14 spot. The other one, UAB and San Diego State, who you just referenced, still not a huge move yet, but a lot of money coming in, taking the 7.5 against San Diego State, which if you watch San Diego State basketball, you can understand why they do play a lot of close games. But they're in a 12-5. And that's one of those matchups that people always like to take in the bracket, right? Is that 12 to upset the 5. At least one 12 seed has won a game in 32 of the last 38 tournaments, but none last year. So it feels like another 12-5 upset is due, but I'm hoping it won't be that one. Come on, Aztecs.
Well, I mean, look, they're on a 5-game heater, right? They lose 2 games back in February, end of March, they lose to Wichita State and Memphis, and then they come through, and we know the Temple game, that there was a lot of guys on that game because of the funny line movement, and then they've gone through and they win the tournament handily. So you got to feel like they've got as good a chance as anybody. They're going to sit there and play San Diego State. We'll see where they are in terms of but the momentum of winning and what they've been able to accomplish is fairly significant. So, and when you look at them, right, I mean, I think to me, they're the kind of team that they're just, they're not a dominant defensive team nor offensive team. They're just playing well together. Usually what I look for when I fill out my breakfast, I go through KenPom and try to figure out who has the best defensive teams.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, and UAB is probably they're not even the top 5 in their conference on defense.
Correct.
But again, they've won 5 in a row, so maybe things have turned around. I mean, they don't even have, according to KenPom, they don't even have they don't have any top 5 player in the conference. Florida Atlantic still has 2.
Went on a run. They were one of those 5 bid stealers that the commissioner talked about yesterday. UAB also, by the way, 1-5 their last 6 tournament games. And I told you in hour 1 that I had some round of 64 breakdown results for you. I'm going to spit out a couple numbers at you and we can discuss here. The 16-1 we know has only happened twice, but it has happened in the last 6 years. UMBC beating Virginia and Fairleigh Dickinson last year upsetting Purdue. 2 and 150, the straight up results there. The 15 against the 2, 11 and 141. But a 15 seed is won straight up now in this matchup, 3 straight tournaments. All 3 have gone on to play in the Sweet 16. That's Oral Roberts, St. Pete's, and Princeton. St. Pete's went as far as the Elite 8 2 years ago. They're a 15 seed again this year against Tennessee. Could we get another St. Pete's 15 seed upset? Thoughts?
I mean, anything's possible in one game, but that's what, it seems to me like these 15 seeds get hot at the right moment, right? And Tennessee, it's one of the challenges for any coach is to go in and build up a team, right? We're playing this team. I know it's the tournament time. We've got to play well, yada, 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 all that stuff. Well, the other team starts looking at St. Peter's and they say, wait a minute, they're 19 and 13 and we're Tennessee. This shouldn't be that hard of a game. Everybody has us favored by almost, what are they favored by 19, 20 points? Like, it's hard. And then all of a sudden, if you shoot well and next thing you know, they're playing at a high level, look, they lose their last 2 games of the season to Ryder and Quinnipiac, and all of a sudden they come out of nowhere. They beat Ryder in the opening round. They beat Quinnipiac in the next round. Then they beat Fairfield to win the title. So anything's possible. Is it probable? I don't think so. I mean, they're not anywhere near playing to the level.
Michael, you know my favorite phrase is just saying. And just like people don't trust Matt Painter, they trust Rick Barnes about as far as you can throw him when it comes to the tournament. I'm just saying.
I know.
The other 15s, Western Kentucky against Marquette, South Dakota State against Iowa State, and Long Beach State against Arizona. That could be another sneaky one as well with a very motivated head coach. To go through again as this last minute.
Well, I thought was interesting is Marquette's finally healthy now, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, they say Marquette is finally healthy. We'll see, because Western Kentucky could be a formidable opponent for them.
2012, the only tournament more than one 15 seed won in the same tournament. So pick your spots if you are picking a 15 seed. 14 seeds, maybe don't waste your breath in the bracket. 22 and 130. They went 0-4 last year. The 13 versus the 4. 32 and 120. We already talked about the 12-5. 11 versus 6. Since 2010, the 11 seeds have a 2-game advantage over the 6. So you're over 50% if you're picking an 11 seed. 58 and 94 overall, however. 10 versus the 7 is 59 to 92. The 9 versus 8, slight edge to the 9 seed there as well, 78 and 74. So some food for thought for you as you get set to fill out your brackets. We'll have a little more college hoops talk when we come back from this quick break. Tate Frazier of The Ringer, the One Shining podcast, is going to join us coming up next with some of his thoughts on the early round.
This is the Lombardi Line with former NFL executive Michael Lombardi. Now here is your host, Stormy Buonantony, on VSiN, the sports betting network.
The field of 68 was announced yesterday on Selection Sunday. The first four Madness gets underway in Dayton, Ohio tomorrow night, and round one games tip off Thursday. You need help filling out your brackets and looking to turn those picks into profits this tournament. Well, VSiN is here with our VSiN Pro March Mania betting guide. In the guide, you'll find expert strategies, insider tips, and in-depth analysis that'll give you the edge you need to outshine the competition. From underdog upsets to championship predictions, the VSiN Pro betting guide's got brackets from hosts and experts, NCAA tournament betting trends, and of course, best bets for every game and round of the tournament. Don't miss out on this game-changing resource. Download the VSiN Pro March Mania betting guide today at vsin.com/betting guides. That's VSIN.com/betting guides. Alongside Michael Lombardi, Stormy Buonantony with you. We'll continue a little bit of our college basketball talk, hoping to connect with your guy Tate Frazier in a moment of The Ringer, the One Shining podcast. And you guys go back to the GM Street days too, so long relationship for you and Tate.
Yeah, long time ago, yeah. It was, and he's such an expert on college basketball. Works on it all year long, which I think it gives you such an advantage. So it's always good to have him join the show, especially this time of the year.
And we do have him right now joining us on the Progressive guest line, Tate Frazier. Okay, does the committee have it out for the defending champs? Where did the committee get it right and get it wrong when things came through yesterday? What's going on?
It's great to hear from you guys. It's the best time of year, and I love we're getting right into it. Yeah, I mean, I think Connecticut fans, they are a loud and proud group, as all of us know here. Like, Connecticut fans will let you know how they feel, and their coach is a perfect embodiment of their fan base. And I agree. I mean, Connecticut having Auburn, obviously, who just won the SEC tournament, having Illinois, who just won the Big Ten tournament, and having Iowa State, who just won the Big 12 tournament and just blew out Houston. And a lot of people thought, going into it, that they could end up possibly being that last one seed, talking about Iowa State. So I understand the gripes from the Connecticut fans. There is no easy path to a repeat, but they definitely have the toughest region, even though they're the number one overall seed.
Tate Frazier, let me ask you, what bracket did you look at and think, wow, that's pretty wide open? Is it the South because of Houston's injuries?
Lombardi, great to hear your voice, by the way. But, I look at the South. I think that's a great call there. I mean, and I think A&M or Nebraska really would be a tough second-round game for Houston. Houston was the last undefeated team this year. Obviously, Kelvin Sampson, one of the best coaches in the country. They pride themselves on defense, but I think everybody's having a hard time getting that Iowa State game, out of their mind. So I think the South is open. The Midwest should be a clear path for Purdue to make a run. But if things go sideways, we could see a lot of upsets down in the Midwest as well. So I think between the South and the Midwest, you can talk yourself into a lot of teams.
Are there any teams, when you did look at the bracket as well, you just thought, I do not trust this team at all? Like, I know there are some more difficult spots, but specifically some of these higher seeds where you look at them and you say, okay, maybe you get a first round win and then I can't trust you beyond that.
Yeah, I'm always worrisome about teams that like to play with a lot of pace going up against teams that are very slow paced. For example, I think a lot of people have been clamoring for Grand Canyon, and I think Grand Canyon is a great program. What Jerry Colangelo and Bryce Drew have been able to do out there. I mean, TCU is like a true basketball school at this point, but St. Mary's slows it down. They're one of the slowest teams in the country. Grand Canyon likes a lot of possessions. St. Mary's is not going to give them that. So I feel like that 12-5, I see a lot of people trying to believe in Grand Canyon. So that scares me a little bit. Auburn is another example of that, and that's what you're talking about, which is teams that we're a little bit worried about. Yale is a team that's going to be very cerebral, very smart, obviously coming from the Ivy League. Danny Wolf, they call him the Jewish Joker. So this guy, he can play some basketball. And I feel like Auburn, that's just a bad, styles make fights. That's a bad matchup for style purposes. So Auburn is a little worrisome there. And maybe that ends up being good news for Connecticut because they can avoid the SEC champs in the Sweet 16.
Hey, Tate Frazier, when you look at New Mexico, they're 18-3, and they go into the month of January, and they lose 6 of the next 10 games, and then they need this incredible run in the tournament to win the Mountain West. Are they a viable team? I mean, their numbers, KenPom has them as the 27th best team in the country. Are they being overlooked at the 11th seed against Clemson, who they're the favorite against?
Yeah, there's a lot of, higher seeds that are favored against their lower seeds, which kind of says something about the committee selections, I guess. But, New Mexico is a great one. I mean, you got Jalen House, son of Eddie House. You got Jamal Mashburn Jr., son of Jamal Mashburn, obviously with the junior there. Not the same as his dad, but he could shoot. And then you got Donovan Dent. They got 3 guards there at New Mexico that are really, really good. Obviously, they have Richard Pitino, who knows how to coach the game of basketball, learning from his dad. So I think New Mexico-Clemson, that's a really bad matchup for Clemson because the guard play kind of dictates things in March, and New Mexico definitely has the better guard play in that game. Maybe P.J. Hall and Ian Shefflin for Clemson can kind of play through the post and get easy baskets and maybe slow the game down a little bit. But New Mexico has a path, Lombardi, where they get that second-round game against Baylor. That kind of matches up well with them as far as, the guards there. And then they could get into a Sweet 16 matchup with someone like Arizona. And who knows? It could really fall in the favor of New Mexico. And at the beginning of the year, I joked about a Pitino going to the Final Four. I thought I was talking about Rick, but who knows? Maybe I was talking about Richard.
Oh, yeah, which brutal for the Big East, by the way. They end up being a 3-bid league when there's 3 teams that probably have a gripe there. And I wanted some Pitino on Pitino crime. I thought that would have been fun in the postseason. But let's stick in the Mountain West, though, because you go from New Mexico. This ends up being a 6-bid lead, some questionable seeding with a few of these teams, and you have both Boise State and Colorado State that end up having to play in the first 4. 11 of the 12 tournaments the first 4 has existed, at least one has advanced to the second round. We've got Wagner Howard, CSU Virginia, Colorado Boise State, and Grambling Montana State. Any 1 or 2 teams that stands out to you that could not only win in the play-in, but win a couple of games?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's between the 2 Colorado teams. I think Colorado could beat Boise State, and then Florida is a little bit hampered right now with injuries. So I could see Colorado, just with the talent that they have there. Cody Williams is, supposed to be probably the top guy taken from college basketball in the NBA draft. We'll see between him and Reed Shepherd. But if they could get past Florida, you get Colorado, Marquette, maybe, the athleticism of Colorado comes through there, and all of a sudden we look up and they're making a run. And on the flip side, same thing with Colorado State. I feel like it's a little bit of even though they're playing in the play-in game, they play a Virginia team who obviously we all know struggles to score and just collapsed against NC State. Virginia should have won that game against NC State, but then we wouldn't have stayed in the tournament. So that's a big what if right there. But I think Colorado State could get past Virginia. They play a Tennessee team that, obviously has a lot of, pressure on them to deliver just because of their coach and the season that they've had and all this sort of stuff. So Colorado State could get a Tennessee team, and who knows, maybe they make a run to Sweet 16. So I think one of those 2 teams would be my pick.
Kyle Smith's done a great job at Washington State. I don't know if he'll be the next Washington coach or not, Tate Frazier, but Drake, Drake has been remarkable, right? Drake comes in there and keeps Indiana State out of winning the tournament, out of making an NC2A bid. So what do you see in this game? Who do you favor here?
Yeah, I think this is one of the best games of the first round. I mean, Wazoo has an amazing story with Miles Rice coming off, battling cancer last season to being the Pac-12 Freshman of the Year, and he's just been, one of the best stories in college basketball. Then you got the DeVries family. We love father-son situations come March, so you got Darian and Tucker DeVries. So it is a game where Drake is really good at ending possessions by getting a rebound, on the defensive end. Wazoo's best offense sometimes is offensive rebounding, especially with Isaac Jones. So Washington State has struggled a little bit down the stretch with teams. Miles Rice hasn't been shooting the ball as well from the three-point line. Isaac Jones been getting double-teamed a lot, has struggled with some of those double teams. So this is a 10-7 game where Drake's going to have a lot of fans in the building in Omaha. Both these coaches are going to be up for a lot of jobs. Kyle Smith, I've heard rumblings about Stanford. That would make sense based on his San Francisco past. But focusing on the now with both these coaches is going to be a great chess match. I think a lot of people are going to pick Drake to win this game. But for whatever reason, Lombardi, I just think Wazoo is one of those teams that could end up in the Sweet 16.
Tate, why does the committee do this to us? Like, Drake, Washington State, you say St. Mary's, Grand Canyon, Gonzaga, McNeese, UAB, San Diego State. Like, these are teams that I have interest in as, like, potential Cinderellas that could win a couple games, and they're playing each other. And so you don't get that fun that you want to get. Yeah,
it's like a cancellation. There can only be one. Through the gauntlet. So you're totally right. I mean, there's Grand Canyon. I mean, Tyon Grant Foster, their guard, who was at Kansas, went to DePaul, had to get revived after a game, and then comes back, transfers to Grand Canyon, then has one of the best, seasons of the year. So, like, to have Grand Canyon and have that storyline, but then on the flip side, you got St. Mary's, who Aiden Mahaney and Marshallonis, Augustus Marshallonis, obviously a legacy name, having those two guards, and then Mahaney's a guy who's from, California, decided to stay at home at St. Mary's. So, like, they're a great story. It's one thing when you have great teams that are going at each other, but these teams also have great stories. So I understand the frustration, and I'm right there with you. Teams and players and stories that we want to root for. Michael, you have something. I know we got to hit the break, though. What you got?
Who's your pick? Yeah, real quick. Who's your pick? Who'd you pick to win it all, Tate Frazier?
I've seen everybody pick UConn, so I'm gonna go a little bit different, and I'm gonna go with North Carolina.
Okay, all right, we love it. Thank you so much, Tate.
Homer.
Check out the One Shining podcast, The Ringer, wherever you get your podcast. We're gonna hit the break. More Lombardi Line coming up after this.
This is the Lombardi Line with former NFL executive Michael Lombardi. Now here is your host, Stormy Buonantony, on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Before the tournament officially tips off, start betting smarter with us here at VSiN with a VSiN Pro subscription. You can sign up on a VSiN Pro annual subscription today and get your first year for only $199 instead of our usual $240 price. All you need to do is use our promo code Lombardi. Get VSiN Pro access to everything we do for an entire year, including our daily best bets with the leaderboard to see which VSiN expert has the hot hand, betting splits to show you where the money and bets are moving for every game, betting systems, premium analysis, 24/7 video access, plus our March Mania betting guide with best bets for every game and round of the tournament coming out later on today. Remember, use the promo code Lombardi. Get your first year of VSiN Pro access for $199. Sign up at vsin.com/subscribe.
The appointments are lined up.
You waiting for somebody in there?
Got an appointment. And it's not about what you want to hear, but what you need to hear.
It's not personal. It's strictly business. It's time you and me had a private talk, Winger. Step into my office.
It's Step Into My Office with Michael Lombardi. Mr. Lombardi, we'll see you now.
Stefon Diggs, step right into Michael Lombardi's office. Take a seat, get comfortable after the cryptic tweet that he posted over the weekend saying he's ready for whatever. Bills fans, NFL media has all kind of gone into a frenzy here, and where there's smoke, there's often fire, as you alluded to earlier in the show, Michael. We've seen reports we should keep an eye out for a potential post-draft trade, although that contract is a challenge to move. What are you telling Diggs today as he looks poised to enter another drama-filled offseason?
Well, you know one thing, you don't have to worry about getting cut because obviously there's value in you, and you would, you know, it would be great for you if you got cut because then you'd be in the open market. But I think more than anything, ignore the noise. And what you have to focus on is getting your career back to where it was 3-4 years ago. You're going to have the best offseason, because when doubts start to creep in on players, when you see their average go down 2 yards per reception, people start to wonder, especially when you hit that magic number of 30, which isn't old, but it's old for football. And so this is really on you. You can't control the noise. You can't control the narrative. But what you can control is your conditioning and your dedication. And I think that's really what's got to happen for you. You got to have the best off season in terms of training, in terms of rest, in terms of hydration, all those things. You've got to put money into your body to make sure that when you go somewhere, whether it's back to Buffalo or whether it's another team, you're at the greatest level of conditioning you've ever been in your life. That's the only thing you can control, and that's what you need to work on.
He's a minus 235 favorite to return to the Buffalo Bills. The Cowboys, the next shortest shot at 4-1. Buffalo plus 550 in the AFC, third shortest shot on the board. They're the fourth shortest shot to win it all in 2024. Again, he is expensive though. $27.85 million cap hit in 2024, the second highest on that roster, second only to Josh Allen. Let's head to a little college hoops conversation here. After ending the regular season on a 5-game losing streak, Long Beach head coach Dan Monson is informed that he would not be returning as the head man next season. What was his response? Oh, just to win the Big West tournament and an NCAA auto bid. How should Monson approach this tournament run and the offseason ahead for him, knowing that he will no longer be at Long Beach?
I think you embrace the moment, right? I think you embrace the moment, and that's what you've done. And I commend you for your willingness to put everything into these games, knowing that the end of these games was the end of your career at Long Beach State. And that takes a lot of mental toughness to do that. So you deserve that. But what you also deserve is to enjoy this special moment, this run that your team is on that no one thought you could accomplish, including the athletic director at Long Beach State. So you can't control what Long Beach State thinks, but you can control your relationship with your players. And it's been remarkable. It's been so much fun to watch. And how you've handled this is teaching other people how to handle adversity. And I think you need to be commended for it. I think it's wonderful. And whatever happens starting on Thursday night, if it's one and done or if you can win two, get to Sweet 16, just enjoy every second and enjoy the relationships that you have with these players, because this will last a lifetime. One win never does.
Yeah, and, you know, they're a team, too, getting 20.5 points in this opening round matchup against Arizona, who, despite their power rating, like, has been beatable. We have seen that. Like, getting that many points and knowing the motivation that those players probably have for their head coach in that moment and what he's going to try to do, I don't hate taking the points in that spot. Let's go back to the NFL. Arthur Smith fired as head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, replaced Matt Canada in Pittsburgh as their offensive coordinator. Now he's in charge of creating an offense to suit Russell Wilson as his starting quarterback and Justin Fields, who they brought in, a guy who caught a lot of flack in Atlanta for not getting the most out of his weapons and utilizing them properly. What are you telling Arthur Smith today his approach should be to bring the best out of this QB room?
Well, I think Arthur knows that the best way his offense operates is with a strong run game. Whether it's handling the ball off to Warren and Najee Harris, he's got two good backs on the Steelers. He's got a really good tight end in Freiermuth. And he's got the ability to stretch the defense with Pickens. So this team has got skill. And I think it starts up front with the offensive line. He's got to get that to where it's blocking well in the run game. But I really think Arthur Smith knows what to do here, because I know this is going to sound ridiculous because one guy won a Super Bowl and another one hasn't. But Russell Wilson at this point and Ryan Tannehill are very similar in what they do. You're going to have to run the football. You're going to have to play action pass for both of them. And you're going to have to hope their athleticism will make some loose plays on the move. And I think Arthur's got enough experience with what he was able to accomplish in Tennessee with this area, and I expect him to do a good job. We have a very difficult time where we tend to evaluate a head coach's performance over his offensive coordinator's performance, and that's just not fair. Arthur Smith's a very good offensive coordinator. There's a lot of reasons the ball didn't go to certain places in Atlanta, and it wasn't because they were the greatest offensive team on turf. London doesn't have great speed. Pitts was injured, and so therefore they weren't the same. They didn't really have a tight end. So I think Arthur Smith comes in and runs the Tennessee offense with a little bit more of a change of pace and utilizes the ability where Wilson won't turn it over and rely on that play action pass to make plays down the field.
Even while I've been a little bit on the fence still about Arthur Smith, we know no matter what, he's an upgrade from Matt Canada. That much is clear. And the Steelers in the division, in the AFC North right now, they are still the longest shot to win it all. But with some of the moves that they have made, they've gone from 12-1 to plus 850 to win the division. Back to college hoops. We thought about putting in our producer, Elliot Bowman, in the office today, but we said no, we're going to leave you out of it. We'll just put Matt Painter back in, head coach of the Purdue Boilermakers, who are once again a number 1 seed in the tournament, despite losing in the Big Ten title game to Wisconsin. Last year, they became the second top seed ever to lose to a 16 seed in the first round of the tournament. What does Painter need to tell his team ahead of another opportunity for a title this year?
I don't think Matt needs to talk to his team about anything because every team is a new team. And these players are not responsible for what happened last year. Some of them were on the team, some of them weren't. But they have no responsibility. It's a new year. What I think Matt has to do is really focus on himself. What did he do? How did he prepare? What mistakes did he make? I think he's got to have, after that loss last year, you almost have to have a I'm never doing that again list. That's an important list to have as a coach. I'm never doing that again. I'm never doing that again. I'm never. And then remind himself. This happens to a lot of coaches. I mean, look, the New England Patriots win their last Super Bowl in 2004. And it takes 10 years for Belichick to win another one. 2 Super Bowl appearances against the Giants, lost both. Was there something going on in their playoff preparation? Was something happening that wasn't registering? And I think that comes down to Matt. I know Coach Belichick did a comprehensive study on that himself, and I would expect Matt needs to do the same thing. Don't put the pressure that the media's put on you on your team. Can't do that. That becomes a real problem, right? Don't you handle the pressure. You stand in front of the team, right? You take accountability for the losses in the past, and you tell people it's going to change. And don't coach scared. Do not coach scared. Don't coach to think we're going to win the game. Play your style and get the players to relax. That's the most important thing. And this is where Coach Walsh would talk a lot about in big games. And the first game in the tournament's the biggest of all because you got to win that one to keep going, right? And so you got to get the players to relax. You got to get them to understand there's no pressure in this game. Just go play.
Yeah, get the first one out of the way. There have been some reports, Michael, that Matt Painter has been telling the story and showing film of Virginia, who, of course, was the first team to ever lose as a top seed to a 16 seed against UMBC in 2018. They bounced back in 19, went on to win it all. He's been using that as a, hey, look, it's been done before, as kind of a motivator and shows, if you can see it, you can be it. If you can dream it, you can do it. Do you like that mentality of showing that it has been done? Why not us?
Well, I think to me, if I were the coach, I would forget about what happened in the past and just start new, right? I don't want to bring up a negative to create a positive. That's not something I want to do. I want to be able to build off of it. And really, this is about me standing in front of them. I don't want them to have to feel the pressure that I feel every day when I go sit and talk to the media. Can I win a big game?
Okay. They are the third shortest shot to win it all in 2024. UConn, a 4-1 favorite to repeat, followed by Houston at 5-1. The Purdue Boilermakers right there at 6-1. We're wrapping things up on the Lombardi line. When we come back, getting back to a little NFL free agency conversation.
This is the Lombardi Line with former NFL executive Michael Lombardi. Now here is your host, Stormy Buonantony, on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
There's never been a better time to have skin in the game with DraftKings Sportsbook than right now, because we've got a VSiN exclusive for new DraftKings customers. Earn a $500 bonus bet for every $1,000 you wager. up to $2,500 in bonus bets your first 3 days on DraftKings. Don't wait. The time is now. Download the app and use that promo code Lombardi when you sign up. Again, you earn a $500 bonus bet for every 1,000 you wager, up to $2,500. Plenty of options on the board right now to utilize that bad boy. And also remember, with so many bottles to choose from, it's easy to find your favorite at Total Wine and More, all at the lowest prices for over 30 years. Find what you love and love what you find. Drink responsibly. Must be 21. This is the Lombardi Line alongside Michael Lombardi, Stormy Buonantony with you. Thank you to Thomas Gable and Tate Frazier for joining us today, getting the lowdown on all things college hoops and some of the early line movement and futures movement that we have seen as it pertains to the tournament. And let's close things out, getting back to a little football here, Michael. And there are a number of things, whether it was coaching shifts or players that signed or re-signed or players moving, that have moved the needle in terms of odds, but also just moved the needle internally in terms of the team. And we'll talk about that a lot on a game-to-game basis, the impact that certain players might have in certain situations. But just because we don't see a massive shift in odds doesn't necessarily mean that there's not a change internally that can benefit this team. And one I'm very curious about your thoughts on is the Browns hiring former Titans head coach Mike Vrabel and bringing him in as a consultant with this team. Does that move the needle for you? Does his presence and what he can bring, will that do something positive for the Cleveland Browns in 2024-25?
Well, I think it's going to do something positive for Kevin Stefanski, which is going to allow him to learn how to become a head coach. Remember, Stefanski has passed the torch of play calling over to the new offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey. So he's no longer going to call the plays. He's going to move into a role that is more suited for a head coach. He's going to oversee offense, defense, and the kicking game. Vrabel can help him in those areas. Vrabel can help him learn how to prepare as in that role also. When you're the offensive play caller for your team and you're the head coach, all you're doing is basically operating as an offensive coordinator. You're staying within that lane. Now he needs to watch offense, defense, the kicking game, and have an impact on all three areas of the team, something he's never done before. And I think Vrabel certainly will help him in that area. Vrabel's been trained. That's what Vrabel does, how he's been able to get his team ready to play and bring all three units together. I think it's a great move for Cleveland. And I'll tell you, it's an indication of Stefanski's lack of ego, which is so damn important. You know, most people would feel threatened to have somebody come in, and especially in the football world. You know, when you go in and talk to football coaches and you start talking about different things, they tend to get very threatened, right? Oh, this guy's coming in to take my job. This guy's coming in to be the head coach. And Stefanski has kind of embraced it. And so I applaud him for it. I think the only way we get better is to continue our learning. And I think Vrabel will certainly help him, because I think Vrabel's one of the best total head coaches. He's not a subcontractor. He's a head coach.
Yeah, and especially when you think about how intimidating Mike Vrabel is in terms of how large he is. And I'm just joking. We all remember that report was taken out of context, but still funny to bring up. Vrabel, though. Go ahead.
It's the same thing as this report about Justin Fields, that there were more offers on the table with better value, but they just wanted to do right by Justin. Seriously. If that's true, Ryan Poles should lose his job. Like, his job is to be loyal to the Bears, not loyal to Justin Fields.
All of the Justin Fields shenanigans, I feel like, have just been ridiculous. And
is all lies.
I mean, the fact that these insiders were really saying that they could get a first-round pick for Justin Fields, and then ultimately seeing what the market is and how that dried up. And neither here nor there, but what we did see clearly during all of that is that he's not a starting.
Saying there were the same people that were saying there was no market for Fields, Stormy, are now saying there was all these deals that he turned down. Like, pick which one you want to be right about.
No, I hear you. Let's go back to the Browns, though, because we mentioned this a little bit earlier in the show, that they have continued to add to their quarterback room. Dorian Thompson-Robinson and Deshaun Watson obviously already in that room, but they add Jameis Winston and Tyler Huntley in free agency. And Mary Kay Cabot, who is obviously like very in the know when it comes to all things Cleveland Browns, she reported that while Deshaun Watson is reportedly ahead of schedule in his recovery from the shoulder injury, this is a team that is really erring on the side of caution about him coming back and potentially not trying to rush him to even be ready week one. So they have added quarterbacks to that room. especially knowing that I joked about it earlier, but they had to use 5 guys last season.
Yeah, I mean, but this is surprising that, something's going on there. Like Huntley, here's the way I look at this, Stormy. If you're Tyler Huntley, what could they have told you to make you want to leave a job where you're the backup to Lamar Jackson and have seen playing time to then go to Cleveland to be third string behind Winston? What was that conversation that made you do that? Did Baltimore say we have no interest in you? Okay, if that's the case, but there are other backup jobs you could have. You could have gone to Chicago and back up Caleb Johnson. I mean, right now they have Brett Rippon on the team. Like, that's not a backup quarterback. We've seen that before. So, yeah, I mean, Brett Rippon, I don't mean to be callous about this, but Brett Rippon was, he was a backup at the Rams and they got rid of him. So, okay, let's look at it from that standpoint, right? If you're Tyler Huntley, what did they tell you to make you come there that you couldn't have gone to the Bears or somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
I think that's something that was told to him.
It's an interesting point there, something that we'll certainly keep tabs on. And by the way, speaking to, could have been the backup for Caleb Williams, he, with the Justin Fields move, has gone from a minus 1,000 favorite to be the top overall pick to now minus 3,500. It feels pretty signed, sealed, delivered that Caleb Williams will be the top overall selection. Speaking of the draft, the Vikings went out and acquired the number 23 overall pick from the Houston Texans, moving some things around, and it certainly seems like they are poised to go trade up and grab a quarterback. How far up do you think that they do ultimately try to get up there and grab somebody?
Well, they've arranged a private workout for J.J. McCarthy. And so but that doesn't mean they love J.J. McCarthy. I'm sure they're going to have private workouts for everybody not named Caleb Johnson, right? But back to the Bears. They do have Tyson Bagent, but I don't consider that a backup quarterback. He and Rippon seem like the same guy. But moving forward here, I think when you look at this, you say to yourself, they're going to move. They're going to try to do everything in their power. I think they're having a great offseason. I think they position themselves to get a quarterback. Is it Bo Nix? I don't know. Is it Michael Penix? I don't know. Is it J.J. McCarthy? I don't know. And I think they're not sure either. I think they want to spend time working these guys out, getting to know them. But I clearly think that Minnesota has their eyes set on somewhere in the draft where they think they can go get a quarterback, and they're going to be willing to pay for it. And if they get a quarterback as they're building this team behind some young players without the Kirk Cousins taking all the money, they're going to be in a better shape than before.
Where the odds sit right now for these top handful of picks, Caleb Williams, like I referenced, a massive favorite to go number 1 overall. Jaden Daniels, minus 180 to go 2. Drake May, minus 130 to go 3. Marvin Harrison Jr. still an odds on minus 260 favorite to go 4 to the Arizona Cardinals. And Malik Neighbors, the favorite at 5, followed by J.J. McCarthy at 4-1. How about DJ Reader agreeing to a 2-year, $27.25 million contract with the Lions? That Lions defense was the biggest problem for this team last year, and they've been trying to upgrade it in a number of areas.
Yeah. I like what the Lions have done. They signed Amik Robertson from the Raiders, the corner. They trade for Carlton Davis. They get DJ Reader, a very good inside run plugger, very good player, good leadership to go along with some of the young players. I think they're made move. I think they've done a nice job, and they're in position now, right? So now the draft can add things to their team. And they still have a ton of cap room. They're going to handle the golf situation. I think Detroit's done a nice job. I don't think that they have taken a step back in free agency. I think they've gained a little bit. They've addressed their issues. And I think they're going to continue to be one of the best teams in the North. But, look, Minnesota's getting better, especially if they get a quarterback. And Green Bay is just a very good young team.
No question. And adding to it, with Josh Jacobs, bringing him in there at the running back position. One last thing for you. Mike Williams has visits set up and has gone on to the Panthers, Jets, and Steelers this week. Anywhere you think is a best fit for Mike Williams?
If I were Mike Williams, I'd go to the Steelers because I think with Pickens on one side, it takes some of the pressure off you, right? I think with Freiermuth inside as there, I would go there. I think I would have an opportunity to want to do that. If you go to the Jets, are you sure that the quarterback, Rodgers, is going to be healthy? Look, Garrett Wilson's a really good player. You get another guy there. The offensive line is to me, still questionable considering Tyron Smith's only played in 30 games the last 3 years. You have to worry about his durability and health. But I think I would go there. And Carolina, that's a tough one for me because I'm not sure they have gotten better.
Yeah, and that's where Deontay Johnson did go. Could Mike Williams be that fill in the Steelers wide receiver room? That's all for us today. If you missed any of the program, make sure you download the Lombardi Line in podcast form, as well as a new edition of the GM Shuffle with Michael and Femi that is out today. We'll be back with you tomorrow. Same time, same place. Thanks for hanging out.